The Warhead Charge, the focus of today's implant tutorial, and one that I was able to make use of recently in Cobalt Edge during a fleet engagement. This implant is much easier to run through, so apart from the introduction, this video will be unscripted. Hopefully that doesn't mean that I run through it at lightning speed and end the video with less than 5 minutes of footage. But I guess I could pad out the introduction with asking for more subscribers. What do you guys think? So anyway, let's go into the implant. And first and foremost, as per usual, we have the ability. That is at the very front, our active skill. Our active skill allows us to switch between range extending missile and precision missile, as well as, of course, the unmentioned regular missiles. We'll demonstrate this in a minute when I undock. But what are range extending missiles and precision missiles? Well, both of them reduce your damage, one by 10%, the other by 15%. Let's go through it. Range extending missiles. The missiles are reduced by 10% in damage, and their flight time increases, and the amount that increases by is dependent on the level of your implant, going to a maximum of 30%. The precision missiles, the missile damage is reduced by 15%, and the explosion radius, the explosion radius goes down by a maximum of 50%, making it much easier for you to be able to apply damage to your missiles. And of course, if you press the button once more, you will find yourself back on your regular missiles. Let's demonstrate that ever so quickly by just quickly undocking in a stealth bomber, because it's the only ship I currently have in system with me that has missiles. And of course, the implants always complain if you undock with something that doesn't quite work. So we'll tap the button down here, and now we've changed mode. We are currently on most likely range extending missiles. Let's have a look. 30.62 missile range. It would help if I actually recognised what these icons actually meant, but the last one was what? 30.62 range. Let's hover over here, and we're now on 25.95 range. So this one will be the one for precision. Now if we press the button again, I need to make sure I actually press the right button. We should be back on regular missiles. But you'll notice there's something different going on here. Now that I've gone back to regular missiles, I actually seem to have all EM damage and not the spread amount of damage that you would normally have. Let's demonstrate by going one more. And it will load, I promise. And we are back to regular damage mode. Click it again. Range extending. Precision. EM. And lastly, we have regular. So that's how we cycle through the abilities. But you'll notice then I had EM, if you can actually zoom in and see the icon properly. Where did EM come from? I've only explained 2 different modes so far, technically 3 if we can include the basic. Well, let's have a look back at the implants and the rest of the abilities. So we'll head back into the implant screen, and you'll notice for the secondary abilities we have Explosive Warhead, EM Warhead, Kinetic Warhead, and Thermal Warhead. All of these abilities do exactly the same thing, technically speaking. They do the same thing, but ever so slightly different. So what am I alluding to here? Each one of these reduces the damage of all damage types by 100%, except for the one that they're named after. The one that they're named after actually gets a substantial damage buff of up to 400%. That means that you can end up with even more damage. So instead of having a total of 400 damage, each one being split 100 on each attribute, you can end up with 500 damage, but all on one attribute, again assuming that your implant is fully leveled up. And these passive skills are not technically passive skills, so you'll notice this doesn't apply to all of the missile types in the game. Instead, all it applies to is when you toggle it around to that particular ability. So we'll notice at level 15 we get to choose between Explosion and EM. At level 30 we get to choose between Kinetic and Thermal. Now I've not been able to test this because of course I do not have a level 30 implant, but I strongly suspect that at level 30 you get one more mode to toggle through. In this case you'd be choosing between Thermal and Kinetic to choose from. That will be after or before your Explosive or EM, in my case EM. Now one thing that is worth noting is this implant is mostly geared towards stealth bombers, mainly because that is where you find your damages get a bit more of a buff depending on what faction you go with. So you'll notice with this stealth bomber, I can get, if I actually trained up all of the skills, but a bonus 50% to the EM damage. That stacks with pushing all of the stats into EM with the EM selection on the implant. So it's something worth mentioning there. Stack your stealth bomber with the implant's passive attribute of choice. There we go. This is one thing with not doing a script. The words just aren't there. Waiting for me. Waiting. Yeah, I can do English, honest. So let's move on to the final ability, the Hybrid Charge. Effects for range extending and precision missiles can be combined with other special missiles. So what this is alluding to here, it's not talking about your normal missiles. This is talking about combining their attributes with your EM missiles or your kinetic missiles. Basically being able to get range extending EM missiles or precision EM missiles. That's my interpretation of it anyway. But again, without being able to test this in game, this is all just theory crafting here. But either way, leveling it all the way up to there, you're still going to be getting the maximum amount of damage out of your EM, your thermal, kinetic, explosive choices, whatever they may be. So as I've quickly blazed through all of that, why don't we have a look at where we can get it in game, which of course requires me to dock back up again. So let us dock right back up. And now we can actually have a look at the Dormant Realm screen. Now this bit I have looked ahead of time, just so that we're not fumbling around and trying to figure out where exactly I'm meant to go. In Tidal Lock, at the usual levels of 4 and 7, as we can see, level 4, Experimental Warhead Charge. And at level 7, we have the basic Warhead Charge. What I'm showing you here is that they are both available. I say both. The first two levels of the implant are available as first time completion rewards in Tidal Lock at level 4 and level 7. Tidal Lock is an interesting one. It takes a while to actually run it compared with your second Dormant Realm Into the Abyss. But it's probably the more fun one. You actually have to move around. It's more battleship oriented, but it's not capital ships, so that's a bonus, I guess. But yeah, that is where you can find it in game. As for how much Warhead charges, why don't we just go and have a quick look in game at how much the Warhead charge actually is. And as you can see up on screen right now, this plug wasn't intended, but we might as well go with it anyway. Earthless, the demo. It's something I've been covering on the channel recently, so check it out if you're interested in a sci-fi computer game that's inspired by FTL, Into the Breach and other related card games. There we go. I've just plugged that completely by accident. Wasn't scripted at all. It was just still in my paste tray. Paste tray? There's a word for it. Clipboard. There we go. Yeah, this is definitely not scripted. So let's have a look at the implant. If you can't get yourself involved in a carry for the Dormant Realm, 1.4 billion for experimental. Basic isn't even on the market, neither is standard, and neither is advanced. I'd probably push someone to give you a carry there. If you can. Not everybody can, but I would. Anyway, that about sums up the implant. As I stated, it is best fitted on a stealth bomber. If we have a look at other ships in the game, other missile ships that is, we're going to quickly find that there aren't really that many other options, I don't believe. I don't know why I just clicked on the Augora, because that is not relevant. In fact, why am I even on Amar ships? I'm not entirely sure if Amar is the right place to be going for missiles. Caldari, however, I do believe that the Blackbird, if I can click on the right ship, is a missile boat. And here we go. You'll notice with other missile boats that you tend to get generic bonus damage. It's not geared towards a particular attribute, so they don't stack quite as well. But again, if we go to a stealth bomber, whereby you do get those stacking bonuses, and again, I am just clicking and hoping that I land on the correct one, which I did not. The Kestrel apparently is not a stealth bomber. But here we go. Large torpedo thermal damage, large torpedo kinetic damage. Is this a cloaking ship? Because this has both of them. But anyway, this is probably a bad example in hindsight because this has 2 bonuses as opposed to 1. Yeah, it is certainly different. Here we go. Large torpedo thermal damage. I apparently have just learned that the tier 10 variants of the stealth bombers get more damage buffs from other attributes. Every day's a learning day, I guess, even if I'm on the opposite side of the learning video. But anyway, I guess I might as well cut the ramble there because this tail end of this video is, I guess, turning into a little bit of a ramble. So is there anything important that I missed in this incredibly unscripted and probably unprepared video, I guess? I don't know. Yeah, is there anything that I missed out? If so, feel free to let me know in the comments section below, and if it turns out that I skipped over a ton of stuff, I'll probably re-record this in the future when I've got through the rest of the implants. But anyway, thanks again for listening or watching or however it is you consume this content, and see you guys in the next video. Fly casual.